Okay, so now let's try to understand what really happened on the endpoint that we developed on the earlier video. So we have the front end, which is the browser, who calls the backend, which is our application, and calls the backend and with the HTTP method localhost.8080 slash, so the root, let's say the root endpoint, with the method get, and basically it tells the server, hey, give me what you have on this particular endpoint. Now, behind the scenes, when we have started our Spring Boot application, it has fired the embedded Tomcat, and this Tomcat has registered all the mapping which we have configured. Now we have configured only one, the request mapping path, just a simple slash, and it has been configured with this get all peoples. So when a client will request this slash path, it will run this method, and this method will give the response. Now, usually in a monolithic application, when you don't have response bodies and JSON format, basically when this slash is called, it will return something like a HTML page. So instead of a JSON format, it will return like a HTML page, and it will display to the user. But this is the monolithic approach. Now we are learning to divide the backend and the front end, and we are learning how to build RESTful APIs. Now you can imagine all these slashes that basically are something like a directory or a folder structure. Maybe it's much easier to understand. So when you go to the slash, you go, hey, give me what you have on this particular, let's say, in quotes, folder. And behind the scenes, because we have added the annotation request mapping and we have put the method get, we have just registered this mapping. And the backend has sent to the front end this person JSON in a JSON format. Now, how does it do behind the scenes? Again, Spring Boot, let me just go to the application. Spring Boot, based on the dependency which we have added, has added this library, which is called Jackson. Let me just search here Jackson. You see I have a lot of Jackson objects which have been configured. This is an external library which have been added by Spring Boot, and this Jackson is responsible of doing the conversion from the person object to JavaScript object notation, and vice versa. And don't worry, we'll dive deep later into the course. But for now, let's just understand how this, based on a simple annotation and a REST controller, we just configured this resource. This is a resource. Now, for example, if I put here peoples and I restart my application, now we will go, let me cancel this, let me go to Firefox. I'm now using Firefox. If I refresh this, you will see this application has no explicit mapping for slash error. Now what Spring Boot is doing behind the scenes is that it doesn't find any mapping on this particular endpoint, and it redirects to this slash error, but for now, you see I don't have my list of persons anymore because I have changed the mapping. Now, for example, if I put here slash peoples, you will see I have this this response because I have configured this mapping, and based on this mapping you can see now that I have this response, and that's all. Now let me type here peoples. You see here this is get slash peoples, and it has 0 parameters. We'll discuss about parameters. And behind the scenes, Spring and Tomcat is using this dispatcher servlet, and based on this is doing the request and response. Because if you go back to my slide, this is the request. So let me just type here. This is the request because the browser is sending the request, and this is the response. So for example, if I go to my browser, F12, now let me use Chrome. Maybe you are most used with Chrome. So if I go here, network, let me just refresh this. So you see peoples, I have here, this is the request URL, this is the request method, this is the status code which I have received, and these are the headers, the response headers, which this is the response which have been sent from the backend. and this is the response headers. And if you see here, the content type is application.json. Basically, this header is being added by Spring with the REST controller. For example, if we go here, and you will see this adds this response body, and this response body indicates that we can receive and JSON as a response. So let's go into the next video, and what we will do, we will build a full CRUD API. So CRUD stands for create, read, update, delete, with these people, and we will enhance this our people model, so we can have like a full CRUD application.